Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix. I welcome you in the name of the ancestors upon whose shoulders I stand, and I welcome you in the name of all that you hold sacred and holy for you. My name is Umtuaswa Anthony Johnson, currently serving as Director of Congregational Life here at UUCP, along with Reverend Margaret O'Neill. I'd like to share with you the welcoming words from the UU congregation of Dublin, Ireland, which kind of resonates somewhere because I did my 23andMe recently, and I found out that I'm 75% West African, 30% Irish. And that was way before I looked, these words I discovered before then, and I adopted them, and they sum up why UU is where it is in my cosmology these days. And the quote goes like this, and I quote, "We do not ask what you believe or ask you to think the way we do." That is so profound for me that I could almost stop now, but I shan't. But we do not ask what you believe or expect you to think the way we do, but only that you try and live a kindly, helpful life with the dignity proper to that of a human being. So welcome all who might find in our friendship and believe that religion is wider than any sect and deeper than any set of opinions, even mine. Welcome all who might find, again, in our friendship, strength and encouragement for daily living. End of quote. The flaming chalice is a symbol of our UU faith. It's lit? Yeah. Thank you. Today's sermon, I've entitled it, "The Beauty of Community." It's true, I actually believe that asking for what you need is the beauty of community. Needing one another is the beauty of community. Sharing your weaknesses, even out loud, is the beauty of community. So today I will attempt to create some beauty of community by sharing parts of my spiritual journey with you, and maybe to also answer the question that I see in some of your faces. Who is that dude in the pulpit and why is he in my face? So I was Mississippi born and Chicago bred, growing up on the south side of Chicago, in what they call a tough neighborhood. I was initiated into gang life when I was about 11 or 12 years old, running the streets and getting into trouble with the law. Now, I say that for a couple of reasons, primarily because as you hear the news reports and form your opinions of what that may or may not look like and who those young men and women may or may not be, I want you to know that what you're really looking at is potential CEOs and potential ministers, because I are one of them. I'm reminded of what Marvin Gaye said, and I quote, "I come up hard, I had to win, then start all over and win again. I come up hard, but that's okay. Trouble, man, don't get in my way." End of quote. So when I was 16, family up, my dad, mom, I hear them in my head, my sister's in the audience. She can attest that Anthony kept getting in so much trouble. We had to get out of town. So we moved to the suburbs to try to find a little different way of being. And I ran out there and met some exotic people. They looked like y'all. I'm gonna have my white friends, and you know exotic Exotic refers to Asians and Africans, the Filipinos, Brazilians, and sometimes even Italians. But I remind my friends, oh no, flip the script. You might be a little exotic to some of us. But the only white folks I had known to that side, growing up on the south side of Chicago with probably 1 million black folks or more there, I had only seen them on TV or the police. Because I was in love with I Dream of Jeannie. I got to be truthful. Oh, you know about that? Yeah. So many over time, many of these folks would become my friends and still are. So I stand here with you today as an elder and honoring really the words of, well, I should digress and do a little test. I'm going to say this quote, and I want you to tell me who said this quote. We give you 3 choices, multiple choice. You know, Americans, we like multiple choice. It was either Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, or Mahatma Gandhi. You got 3 of them things. You got Malcolm, Martin, or Mahatma. Okay, here's the quote. This is a time for martyrs now. And if I'm going to be a martyr, then let it be in the name of brotherhood. Was that Martin? Was that one? Was that Mahatma? Or was that Malcolm? Ooh, everybody, I love y'all. Yes, that was Malcolm. So I went to an integrated high school, which I thought was a college. I'll never forget the night my dad drove us out there, and I saw these beautiful buildings. They had lights shining on the building and, you know, a lawn and all. I said, Dad, that's a college. It can't be no high school. Besides, they have a football stadium across the street from the school. This has got to be a college. No, it was Bloom Township High School in Chicago Heights. And that began my sojourn to another way of being. I have always questioned what I call the big 3, the religions of Abraham, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. My friends, I often hear the phrase Judeo-Christian tradition. I offer you an expansion. Don't leave your Islamic cousins out of that. This is the Judean Christian Islamic tradition. But for some reason, they just didn't resonate with me. Though I attended the church and the mosque, as my father raised us in the Nation of Islam, instead of the big 3, I resonated with the mystery. So to me, the 3 most powerful words in the English language are, I don't know. Now this is an inquiring I don't know, a studying all major religions I don't know, and quite a few minor ones too. But I've always felt connected to something a little more, I'd like to say, larger and mysterious. So it was in college in the early 70s I began to listen to what I call African American classical music. You probably know it as jazz. As I look at Dr. Benjamin Messer, music guy he is, and my beloved daughter Carmen, another musician. I have a thing about musicians. They're not musicians. No. In my head and heart, they are mathematicians of the soul. That's how much I love music. So when I heard this so-called jazz music, which has the, for lack of a better phrase, here I go, the chordal, the chord structure, the harmonic resonance of Stravinsky, of Bach, of Vivaldi, that structure, plus the brothers and the sisters had the audacity to take that structure and sprinkle in a little improvisation. Out comes so-called jazz music. So that music in general, and one John Coltrane in particular, led me beyond any doubt. One thing I knew for sure, I didn't know what it was. Oh no. But I knew there was something more to this than this. And it was here that I was given my African name, Umtuaswa, which is a Swahili word for natural man. and I begin that journey down the path of the ancestors. I've always been an avid reader, and I don't really read books, I eat books. In the Army, it was Taoism and the practice of Tai Chi that allowed me to go to the woods and do my practice while all my other fellow soldiers went to church. To get my commanding officer to give me permission to do that was quite an accomplishment, but that's a story for another day. So moving into the business world, I spent about 3 decades in the television and film industry, eventually producing and managing several nationally televised primetime specials. In my years in this field, I created and managed high-end post-production company divisions, working with writers and editors, creative folks in both broadcast and cable networks. It was in the mid-90s that I learned of the Red Road, the way of the Lakota, honoring and doing things simply in a good way. It was in the Mankind Project, an international men's organization dedicated to, quote-unquote, honoring the sacred masculine. And I've been involved in men's initiations with that group now since 1995. Allow me to do a commercial specifically aimed at all you men, that we will be starting a men's group here at UUCP, which we have entitled Future Masculine, where we will be sharing some of those traditions and many, many more, and all those experiences that you bring, to take a look and explore what it means to be a man in the 21st century. Me too, you too, all the twos. What does it mean to be a man in the 21st century? So I hope you will, they have the stuff in the back, look in the catalog of events. We start the 27th of September, and we'll be meeting the last Thursday of the month. In the words of the great Persian poet Rumi, I believe, as Rumi said, quote, "We must challenge men to become hunters of a more invisible game." We must challenge men to become hunters of a more invisible game. So I hope you would join me in that exploration. I also would be remiss, because words are coming up from a woman who stood where I'm standing for many years, and that woman would be the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray. And she said, and I quote, speaking of these times, where we are here in the 21st century, these times, she said, "This is America. This is the United States. And this is the disparity that brings into sharp relief the racism and broader system of white supremacy deep in our nation." She goes on to say about this present day and time that, quote, "This is no time for a casual faith. This is no time," she said, "for a casual faith." And I might add my little 2 cents, I believe it's no time for a timid faith either. So can we say, as Reverend Margaret, or can we be, as the Right Reverend Margaret asks us, can we be a spiritual community for our time? One that is theologically diverse, radically inclusive, and justice-centered? Yes, I resemble that remark. I'm a practitioner of indigenous African spirituality as taught by West African wisdom healer Malidoma Somé, teachings that share the healing wisdom of Africa. Thank goodness for the scientists in Nat Geo, because now we know everybody can be traced back to that birthplace of mankind. And I'm so happy about that, because I love that place. There's a little landlocked country there called Burkina Faso. There's a group of people there called the Dagara people. And it is some of that wisdom from that place that I practice. And they have a word that I want you to share and participate in learning with me. Their word is Yil Bangura. I'm going to spell it for you so you can get a picture. It's spelled Y-I-E-L-B-O-N-G-U-R-A, Yil Bangura. Can you say it with me, please? Yil Bangura. Yil Bangura. One more time. Yil Bangura. Thanks. And Yil Bangura translates to mean, Yil Bangura is the thing that knowledge cannot eat. It is the thing that knowledge cannot eat. Much as I love my head, I usually hold my cell phone up at this time. I love the head. But we can't get there from here. So it was with this kind of attitudinal experience that I showed up at a Trayvon Martin rally in 2012 and discovered Unitarian Universalism, or it discovered me. My wife Lydia and I had moved there to be with my folks, and I said, honey, let's put our hoodies on and go down and march with the people. And that's what we did. Now, she's a native of Santa Barbara, California, so living in Mississippi was a little bit of a stretch. But that's also a story for another day. But there was a man standing in this racially mixed intergenerational crowd, and he had a yellow T-shirt on. Y'all know what it said, yeah? What did it say? And she ain't nothing but a love bunny. And so she struck up a conversation with this fellow, and one thing led to another. I met him and his wife, Rita and Robin Clark, and he turned to me and said, and I got to do it the way he did it, he looked at me straight in my eye and said, would y'all like to come to our church? I was having a Gomer Pyle moment. I must. Yes, I did. Now, you know, I was saying to myself, man, I'm a spiritual person. Man, I don't do no church. And I know I definitely don't want to go to the church I think you go to. Oh, as I shucks, yeah. That's what I was thinking. But what came out of my mouth was, okay. So I went. I'll never forget it. Sitting on the side of the road was this little brick church, Our Home Universalist Unitarian Church. I didn't know what that meant at that time. So we went on up in there, and the folks welcomed us, and it was beautiful. I turned to Lydia and said, honey, I think I'm the only man of color in 50 miles around here. And not only all white folks, these is old white people too. I mean, woo-wee. And I'm here to tell you there's my story and there's what happened. It was like butter. Boom. They said to me, Anthony, they call us no hellers because we don't believe in hell. And I said, check. And we don't have a Bible. I said, double check. And then they said, and these are our principles. And I said, no. Those would be my principles. That's what I believe. And boy, look, 6 years later, I'm tap dancing out of seminary. Go figure. Because what happened, thank you, what happened, I walked in that church and they had a big glass enclosed history of the church in the rear. Newspaper articles and clippings on the history of the church. And there it was in my face, fighting for black folks' rights, gay rights, and women's rights, and workers' rights since 1906 from that church. And I stood there like, hello, what? So one thing led to another, and they invited me to come speak, but understand I was no I wasn't doing no seminary or reverend stuff at that time. It was interesting. I had performed weddings for people and done that stuff, but I was a spiritual guy. Religion, I ran away from it like it was, I don't know, a bad fever or something. So, so I thanked them immensely for their support and getting to know them. It was beautiful, and I said, toodles, and I was off on my way. I was going to Atlanta to work with ex-offenders. I had been doing work with people, men and women, getting out of prison for many years. So I went to spend the summer in Atlanta to continue that work. My daughter Karma happened to be there that summer. We had a beautiful summer. She was there on a art kind of institute piece, and we had a great time. On the final night of that gathering, we had a party. I went to their party, and it was wonderful. And there she introduced me to a person by the name of Joanne Braxton, who she just mentioned, and I told her I was living in Sedona at the time. And she said, oh, Sedona, I have a good friend there. His name is Glenn Farley. He's the Reverend Glenn Farley, a UU minister. And I went, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. I had never heard of UU, and now I was hearing it again within 2 weeks' time. So when I get back to Sedona, of course, I go, you know, being a man of my word. I would meet this young fellow, and there he was, sharply dressed, brilliantly fresh-faced, suit and tie, wonderful, dynamic, good old reverend-looking feller. And I looked at him, and I just said, man, I got T-shirts older than you. And we got along swimmingly well. One thing led to another, and I was sharing with him kind of like the words of Will Rogers come up, that great guy, Will Rogers. Will Rogers said, and I quote, he said, if you did it, it ain't bragging. So I was sitting there kind of bragging with this Rev. I was, bragging. I was saying, yes, and I was a director of production for Black Entertainment Television, and I did 6 primetime specials with Ted Koppel, and I'm this and I'm that. I was just talking trash. And he said, and then I say, but the thing I'm most proud of in my 10, 12 years that I spent in the nation's capital was I started a group called Multiculti. It's where white men, black men, red men, yellow men, brown men came together and looked each other in the face and talked about race and about gender and about class. I said, those were the most profound moments for me. And then I said, and we met in this place called Cedar Lane. Man, he jumped just like she did. He jumped up out of his chair and said, Cedar Lane, that's my congregation that I have been a member since I was 2 years old. Do, 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 do. Well, I'm not hard to get along with. I got the message. So in chatting with him, I eventually applied to Star King, and eventually I graduated just in May 28 with a Master of Divinity. I'm reminded of what they say about, I was going to say you Unitarians, with us Unitarians and Universalists. They go like, what they say about Universalists? Universalists believe God is too good to damn people. But those Unitarians, they believe they're too good to be damned. The great merger there in 1961, huh? So today, I'm here in your face, and I walk like I walk, and I borrow from all that I have learned and all I continue to learn. I am what I call, because in America, you got to be something. You're a bartender, you're a reverend, you're a philosopher. Call me a reminder, because I'm making it up as I go along, being guided by the beauty of community, and by doing it as the Lakota taught me to do it in a good way. Reminding each of us of our innate, for me it's innate and it's automatic, it's like breathing, our innate connection to spirit, or as we say in our UU circles, to the spirit of life. So I'd like to close with a quote from the great James Baldwin. Mr. Baldwin said, "Not everything in life can be changed. Everything that we face can be changed. Not everything that is faced can be changed. No. But one thing is sure. Nothing can be changed until it is faced. Blessed be. Amen. Ashe.